Richie from Boston. It is the 18th of September. It's 2019. That's at least what they want us to believe. And for once, we're early. Brandon showed up. The big Sib is in the house. Most of you guys already know him. If you don't, you're either going to love him or you're going to hate him. It is what it is. Brandon, what's up, brother? Thanks for joining me, man.
What's going on, Richie? Thank you for inviting me, man.
I promised you a while ago. I mean, I mirrored a couple of your videos, but you do teachings, man. You're way above my pay grade. And when I saw this article, it was one of the things we were just talking about before we went live. It just fell in my lap. I looked at it and I started making a video, and people seem to think I'm onto something, but I don't want to make sure I'm not, because I get a lot of emails saying, Richie, you cannot talk about the people in Israel like this. And Richie, these people that, yeah, I'm not seeing it like that, man. The first time I ever got in trouble with YouTube was when I put up a series called Who the Ashkenazi Jews Really Are. That's when I really got in trouble and I knew I was onto something. So I'm going to do a screen share here real quick. And let's get into this, man. I want your point of view on this because I've listened to every one of the videos you've made. I told you I listened to them while we were going cross country. I had this link up and you sent me this link anyway. Take as much time as you want. What do you make of this? Nations invited for animal sacrifice on the Mount of Olives, renewing, or bringing it all back again to Noah's covenant.
Okay. So first off, let's dispel what we think is Noah's covenant versus what they are going to enact, right? This is the Noahide law system. Okay. First off, they're going to give you this seven principles that's not really for you. We're going to look at that. I shared a link with you. We'll look at that later. It's 620 laws for Gentiles. Remember, they're chosen. They come from royal lineage, royal stock. They get to live while you be their slave. But let's just look at the first thing. The 70 nations gather. Well, first you have to know about a principle of Israel and Judaism and the Kabbalah. We'll tie all these concepts in later. But first off, what we have is Tikkun Olam. Okay, this is Tikkunolam. And what this is repair of the world. There's a reason the 70 nations are reuniting here. For anybody of any biblical sense, you're going to know that the Table of Nations broke down into 70 after the Tower of Babel. And I sent you the 1754 Freemasonry Bible with Nimrod for a reason. Because remember, they're taking it all the way back to their leader, back to the united world, the one hive mind. This will be a transgender, transhumanism. This will be a dystopian nightmare for anybody living with the right mind. But this is what we're watching here. And if you read this article yourself, you could come away with like, oh man, this is great. This is wonderful. But I'll scroll down here to you. I've got a couple sections of it highlighted myself, and we'll talk about it. Under Noahide principles incumbent on all mankind, Rabbi Hollander, who also sits on the board of the Brit Olam organization, is convinced that universal adherence to the Noahide laws is necessary for the existence of civilization. Okay, we'll continue on. If you read history, you will see that the Hebraicists of the 17th century believed in a minimum basis which society needs in order to exist. Rabbi Hollander said, this is clearly true in Noahide law to establish courts of law. And it's going to be important for anybody who attends my Bible studies. All of the laws are required by a nation and not by an individual. Remember, we're going to destroy the private. We're going straight public. And the only private organizations are going to be international, multinational organizations needs to establish the basic required for the survival of civilization. So you have right there them explaining to you that what we are going to do is continue the destruction of the individual, because the individual is what makes up the world. So in order for their dystopian nightmare to, I call it a dystopian, they call it utopia now. is for the one hive mind. We have to bring in this collectivist mindset. You got anything to say, Richie?
Well, the one thing I'm glad to hear you say right off the bat, and we didn't talk about this, is how you tied this straight to the Tower of Babel. Like you said, I sit down and make videos. I don't have anything in mind. As soon as I saw this, it's exactly what I did, is tied it to the Tower of Babel, because that's what came to me. So that's just a nice little confirmation to hear it from you. You know what I'm saying? Because honestly, I make videos. I mention God. I believe in Jesus. I understand that he died for our sins, et cetera, et cetera. You do hardcore hour-long Bible studies and back it up, and you break a lot of people's hearts when you do it. So you're definitely on it.
Well, and you know, it's the truth. Most people think they want the truth. Now, what happens with the truth, if you really want to go after it, is that it is going to force you to alter your worldview. And let me tell you something. If you're not willing to change your worldview, what happens is you get mad at the truth and the truth teller, and that's just what happens.
Easily. It's that there's a saying, I can't think of it off the top of my head, but it's easier to fool people than to tell them they've been fooled. They don't want to hear it. And we see that every single solitary day. Every September 11th, we see the cognitive dissonance and the predictive programming showing itself. You know what I'm saying? It's a sad thing. It's really sad.
It is. And we'll scroll back down in that article. I got something else. A few other. We see the essence of the organization. I'll read right there. And listen, folks, you've got to start paying attention to the words, because words have meaning. Now, they are destroying our language and what it means, what words even mean. That's happening all the time. And ambiguity, and I need to explain what ambiguity is. Ambiguity is when one word has multiple meanings. The English language itself is already a deceptive language, and we are allowing them to change our language in front of us. The manipulation of our words is the manipulation of our reality, and it manipulates the people who must use the words. So let me read this. An international court will sit in Jerusalem and judge according to the important and recognized laws of the Bible as adjusted to actual facts of life. All members of the organization, states, nations, ethnic groups, tribes will have a seat and equal voting powers in the court of law, as long as they accompany the people of Israeli, as it appears in the covenant composed by the Sanhedrin in 2018 and signed by a number of countries. So what you have is modern day Pharisees and Sadducees sitting in a national international court in Jerusalem. I don't know if anybody here has ever read Revelation. Anybody? Because I'm pretty sure this is foretold what would happen.
No, I totally agree with you.
And so what we see here is actually on the Mount of Olives, of course, was where Yahushua was crucified. And I'm not going to get into that tonight. We'll just leave it there.
Brandon, have it. If you feel it, have at it, man. Don't worry about cutting yourself short, man.
What you have is a straight up blasphemous spit in the face of Christianity, and and people don't like when I say this, but they've bastardized. This is another destruction in language, right? They've splintered Christianity into 1,000 different pieces, to where the word Christian doesn't have any meaning or connotation that it did 100 years ago. We can be a transgender Christian. We can be a transhumanist Christian, like in the Mormon church. Christian doesn't even hold the same value, but this is what they do. They divide and subvert, infiltrate and subvert through their perverted desires. There's another one. That's a good one. Vigilant Citizen. I like him.
Yeah, it's a good. I've been using this site for years, and he never gets back to me. I've hit him up a bunch of times on Instagram, but I leave links to this probably every 10th video, because it's a veritable cornucopia of knowledge. This entire building right here should tell people absolutely everything, because I mean, like, this building is literally, it is a Freemasonic ritual built in stone. Like the entire building, you know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, and what you have there, and if we're going to go Freemasonic, right? If I know you told the people that you shared the 1754 Freemasonry Bible there, Nimrod's the first master mason. They're going to claim everybody good as a mason. Don't even worry about that. Don't stress about that, guys. But they give the truth. The truth is there too. And then, of course, you get into Albert Pike's Morals and Dogmas, where he straight up tells you that Kabbalah is the root and foundation of all secret societies. And this is, of course, what you'll have today is people get into this argument of it's the Jesuits, it's the Jews. And you can scroll in right there. There it is, Nimrod, the first master mason. And what you have is people go back and forth, and what they're getting involved in is separating powers that have the same inner court religion. And what you have is the outer court, the exoteric, is for the goyim, for the masses. You got to have a scapegoat ritual and everything. So when Rome does something bad, it's the Jews get held up. When the Jews do something bad, Rome gets held up. But you're just arguing over two factions. The truth is that the money changers and the corpus juris and how our law systems are written up has enslaved the entire world. There's not a country left that is free of, or any people left that are free that aren't boggled in debt. And it's a shame that we spend so much time arguing over fine details and we can't come to a conclusion that the religion, hey, Esoteric Eric, hey, buddy, you can't come to a conclusion that the religion is all the same. And it doesn't matter. One of the things that I see people have a hard time with over and over again, if you show them in black and white about Israel and about Jewry, they get real offended real quick. And that is really it's idolatry, to be honest, is to raise up men somehow into a place of the Father. And it just blows my mind that we've been infiltrated and subverted so easily.
For everybody that's asking, this is Brandon, the Big Sib YouTube channel. Links to everything that I'm showing really poorly right now because it's been a long day and I'm having a hard time with the screen share. Everything are in the comment section that's pinned for you. So links to his channel, link to the Pocket Companion Freemason Bible thingy. All of this stuff is in the comments, and it will be. So there's that. Go ahead.
And I want to give people a warning on that stuff. Listen, guys, you have to have discernment when you go into reading their garbage. If you don't know how to read through their crap, and I'm going to call it exactly what it is, it's crap. But what they do is they take every single person of importance that was true for the light, and they try to turn them to the dark. And they make Noah a Mason. They make everybody a Mason. And but the truth is right there because Nimrod was the first master Mason. I want to read something to you guys for everybody here. And this comes from and of course, here we go again. Here's another one of those deals, right, where the protocols, where they say, well, this the Jesuits that wrote it, the Jews wrote it. Well, let's just throw it out the window. Let's just, for a matter of fact, if you've ever read the protocols, they've happened, you know. But Rabbi Kimmer of Arles in Provence, France, wrote the Grand Sanhedrin for advice because the people of Arles was threatening the synagogues. Following is a portion of the reply Rabbi Kimmer received. The advice of the grand satraps and rabbis follows. As for what you Jews say that the king of France obliges you to become Christians, do it outwardly, since you cannot do otherwise, but let the law of Moses, remember when you see Moses or Noah, understand this is the oral tradition. This is going to be the Talmud. And if anybody hasn't read the Talmud or know what's in the Talmud, shame on you. Let the Talmud be kept in your hearts. As for what you Jews say about the command to despoil you of your goods, make your sons merchants, that little by little they, your sons, may despoil the Christians of theirs. As for what you Jews say about the making attempt on your lives, and here's where it gets really good, folks. Make your sons doctors and apothecaries, and then they, your sons, will take away Christians' lives. Hey, folks, that's happening. Look at our modern medical establishment. It's not medicine, it's poison. And we continue on. As for what you Jews say of they're destroying your synagogues, make your sons canons and clerics in order that they may destroy their Christian churches. Number 5, as for the many other vexations you Jews complain of, arrange that your sons become advocates and lawyers, and see that they always mix themselves up with the affairs of state. And I'm going to tell each and every one of you, woe unto you lawyers. And you'll notice that your entire Congress, your entire Senate, and most other seats of any political power are made up of lawyers. There's a reason for that, folks. And I advise people to figure out what a lawyer really is. In order that by putting Christians under your yoke, you may dominate the world and be avenged on them. Do not swerve from this order that we give you, because you will find by experience that humiliated as you are, you will reach the actuality of power. Signed, the Prince of the Jews, 21st Calsuit, November 1489. And these things work together, because whether we like it or not, the truth is evident. We can try to hide from it. We can try to run from it. But the truth is evident. We have been infiltrated, subverted, watered down, and broken down by perversion, filth, poisons, drugs, and everything else. This is this is the truth in front of our faces. Go ahead, Richie.
You're good, brother. I had my mic muted. It must be driving you absolutely crazy that you can't do this with your usual visuals, and I'm messing them all up on this end.
No, it's fine, man. Because I'm gonna everybody who comes to my channel, this information, I'm gonna do a study on it this weekend. I do presentations, probably the only thing that's protect me so far. And for all y'all that don't know, I've just come off a fresh week ban myself, because I named the Jew. That's right off. As a matter of fact, my headline right there comes from the virtual Jew, the Jewish virtual library. And this is one of those important things, right? The most important of the three were the Pharisees, because they are the spiritual fathers of modern Judaism. And it's just the truth, folks. They just didn't. The Sadducees, the law, and the Pharisees, the religious crowd, just didn't disappear. They just didn't disappear. But anybody who's welcome to come to my channels, there's some good stuff on there. I think it's pretty good.
I do too. I've listened to it all. That's the beauty part of it. You know what I mean? You've broken down so many. Like I've mirrored a couple of things where you went through the Constitution and the I think it was the Declaration of Independence, and explained how it's all worded, but it really isn't worded for us. So all the people screaming and yelling at, they're going against the Constitution. Dude, they're not listening to it whatsoever at all. It doesn't even apply to us. Look at the lettering. Look at the way. Look up what the words mean. That's the most important thing, and that's the most impressive thing that you've done, is literally explain to people what words mean, and people don't want to hear it, man. They don't want to hear it.
Yeah, no, and it's one of those things. The reason why I do focus on the law so much, Richie, is because I can find everything in black and white. It's you can't argue with it. It's one of those things that's not left up to subjection, right? And I can show you over and over again that what we call the law in this country is nothing more than hocus pocus. And really what we are is statutory slaves and surety for the debt. And of course, then you equate debt with sin, because the borrower is slave subject to the lender. And from the day we're born, we're subject slaves.
You want to explain that a little more? Because I've already told people, I don't even know how many times, that your social security number, all that is just traded on the stock exchange. We are the collateral that all this national debt is being piled upon. Well,
yeah. One of the few congressmen who ever told the truth was James Traficantis.
I've done videos on him, man, and those will get you an instant copyright strike.
Instant. Hey, look, and I'm gonna tell you something right now. You used to be able to find his that speech and on video.
I saved it to an external. I got it if you need it.
Yeah, send it to me, because I can't find it anymore. But the truth is that we're in Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and that's a fact, Jack. And of course, anybody with any logical sense doesn't know how a child born today, it owes somebody $2 million. Well, folks, that's slavery. I don't care. I don't care what you say about it. The fact that you have to pay somebody else to live means you're a slave.
All right. I'm sure this is sarcasm, but answer this a little bit if you can.
Okay.
He's saying, what about my truck payment, my student payment? Am I a demon?
Well, no, you're not. You're not a demon,
that, dude. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, we're born into this world. The ignorance of our parents are passed down to us. Listen, listen. I'm no different than anybody else. For some reason, I started asking questions. I lost my first house. I went in debt just like everybody else does. That's what I was taught to do. You know, you needed a brand new truck. You need all this stuff. And what did I do? I'm a crane operator by trade, guys. I make pretty good money. I've been all across this country operating large cranes and making $200,000 a year, and I couldn't pay my bills. and that's what how it's set
up. It's how it's set up. I mean, when I was born, $1 was still something you could go trade in for silver or gold if you wanted to. The silver certificate, the gold certificate. The dollar is worth 97 cents less than it was when I was born. Dude, the dollar's only worth 100 pennies. I mean, how are people not? It amazes me. They slip in property tax, so you can never own anything in this country anymore, and nobody said a word. The inheritance tax. Somebody dies and leaves you money, the government's got to take their half or more. And if you don't consent, they come in with the law enforcement officers, which were police officers when I was a kid. Now they're law enforcement.
Well, yeah, and you know, just on my little river behind my house right here, they're riding up and down this river with machine guns and AR-15s and everything else, pulling people over to give them tickets for not having a fishing license. I don't know how anybody else feels, but I don't think I should ask permission from anybody to go fish a river.
Well, that's the thing. That's the other thing that I've harped on a bunch of times, and people, you know, everyone just waves it off. You can't be. You have to pay to live here. You can't go hiking unless you walk all the way there, because if you park, you got to pay. If you want to go fishing, you got to pay. If you want to hunt, you got to pay. You want to do anything, you got to pay. And they've convinced people that the Second Amendment was for hunting, which is amazing because it's a simple paragraph. Read it, understand it, and carry on. But, you don't need a machine gun to go hunting. Not what it was ever set up for. It was so that we were equally armed as the government. People used to be afraid of a standing military. Now it's a sports team, and that was all by design. You know what I mean? USA.
Well, we weren't even supposed to have a standing army. The only time the army was supposed to come back in was when Congress declared war or anything like that. We were never supposed to have a standing army, and yet here we are today. And that's not only do we have a standing army, but we have a militarized police force.
Bad. He's not exaggerating. If you guys spend any time in the woods, I don't mean to jump in real quick, but if you spend any time in the woods, if you come up against any type of forestry worker, they're strapped. They have AR-15s. They are bulletproof now. They're not friendly rangers like Yogi Bear and such. That's all gone. They're everywhere, and they have a lot of power. No,
they do. They do. Remember, all they have to do is scream, "Stop resisting," and they can kill you.
Indeed. Indeed, man.
And that's the truth. But let's get back onto this.
Which one do you want up?
I tell you what. Let's go to the 620 laws. I tell you, go to the 620 laws, and I'm gonna read something from Maimonides. And of course, if y'all don't know who Maimonides is, the Jewish rabbis. Well, I ask that you go look it up, and it's Maimonides. And what we're going to talk about here is the difference in what they're portraying to people, and what they're going to portray to you are these 7 Noahide laws. And first off, I want to invite everybody to understand that the Ten Commandments as they sit are perfect. And they're perfect for a reason, because they expose the entirety of man's deception on man. And I do great breakdowns of that. I'm not going to get into it today, but it's really important to understand what the Ten Commandments are truly about, and it's most
Brandon,
people.
you can get into it, brother. Don't worry about it, unless you're on a clock.
No, I'm not on the clock, but that's kind of it's kind of going into deep theology. But we'll break it down for everybody. So the first commandment is have nobody else before Yahuwah. Okay, that means no gods. There's only one Father. Okay, so we go to the second, and that's on thou shalt not have any images and make any images of heaven and earth and everything like that. Well, what we do. And people bypass this. They don't understand what a graven image is, right? A graven image is a dead image, okay? And each and every single one of us today carries in our pockets and carries in our lives the straw man. Every single one of us. And that's a persona. And we go around and we keep calling everybody persons and everything else, that we're persons. But a person isn't a living man. And this is why we don't use these words, this language today, man or woman or babies. We use embryos so we can kill it. But all these commandments are hugely important in understanding the enslavement of you through man's system and what it takes to commit yourself to the Father and through the Son Yahusha. And of course, I'll use the name Yahusha. But anyway, they are important. And of course, oh, there you are. Okay, I'm here. And so what you'll get to understand is that they've already removed three of the most important. So what they're doing is that they're removing the three most important that tie you to the Father. Because remember, the Kabbalah and all these other religions are about the worship of self. It's Luciferian apotheosis. They're gonna attain. They're gonna sit in the throne as acting as the Most High. But you only need one law: don't steal encompasses all others. Oh
yeah, I don't mean to distract you with those. These are distracting, right? I'm just trying to put them.
No, they're good. They're good. They're good. I try to recall everything from memory. That's why I don't like doing that when I try to recall everything from memory. But it is there. It is there. The Ten Commandments are vitally important for us. And of course, we what you'll get into today is that we're under the age of grace, and you'll get into this deal where people say the laws are abolished. That's not how law is. Law is eternal. We are under grace, but we are also called to be outside and separate from the world. What separates us from the world is being not of the world and living under His commandments. And it's weird because they want to. This is how this is how they divide us, right? They say, well, if in order to have grace, you got to be outside the law. Well, really, they're synonymous. Grace and law work together.
As soon as, I mean, this started happening a few years ago, I knew that we weren't on the wrong track. And I was not proclaiming Jesus and God. I was not talking about the full armor of God. I wasn't that concerned until they started pulling down the Ten Commandments everywhere. And then right after that, suddenly the Baphomet statue, the 9-foot statue that I videotaped at the Satanic Temple's headquarters right down the street from where I live, they started wheeling that thing in, man. I mean, it's pretty obvious what they're doing.
Well, it's really simple. You can use simple logical deduction, right? If you ask somebody if they're under grace and not under law, Kabbalah is a religion, Lloyd Barker. It is a religion. But anyway, that's right, Scotty. But if you simply logically deduce, if you ask somebody if they're only under grace and grace alone, well, the next question is, well, are you lawless? And whose law do you live by? And of course, then we know idolatry is putting man's laws above Jah's law.
Did you get lost?
No, I'm reading that. Shows how great Creator Jesus is. Well, I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to get into that because what you have is the ability of Jews to infiltrate and subvert slowly. And that you'll have what they call Messianic Jews. We're going to hold on to our Jewishness. Well, I hate to tell you what makes a Jew, and they'll say it right there on the Jewish Virtual Library. And many of rabbis, if you can convert to Judaism, you've got Ethiopian Jews, Chinese Jews, you got white Jews, red Jews, black Jews, purple Jews. I don't care. Judaism is a religion. Okay, Kabbalah is part of that religion. And there you go, Christina. It is the lawless one. We have to have law. That's what sets us apart. So let me get back over here. I want to read this quote from Maimonides because I think it's kind of important to understand as we move forward that there's two sets of laws. There's laws for the Goyim, the Gentiles, and there's their laws. Now, remember, I think it's Shabbat Lubavitch who said that the Jewish soul emanates from God, and only the Jewish soul does. The Goyim do not. And Maimonides rules that only the Jews must keep the 613 commandments for ultimate salvation. It is enough for the Gentile world to accept the 7 Noahide laws of morality. But we certainly must proselytize every human being to keep those 7 laws. Do not worship an idol. Do not misuse God's name. Do not murder. Do not commit licentious sexual acts. Do not steal. Respect all creatures, and create a judicial system to enforce the first 6 laws. Noahide law is simply a Judaic iteration of Islamic demitude. And see, what you have today is men and women going back and forth. The real culprit is Islam. And of course, they'll go back and forth, but they don't know that Islam was infiltrated by Judaism too, and that the most dangerous book ever written on earth is the Talmud, and it is the most vicious, nastiest.
It's brutal. It's brutal to the point where it doesn't even seem real how bad it is. You know what I mean?
And I've got them all downloaded, and I'm not going to tell people to go read it unless you're of the scholarly opinion. But I will be flat out honest. If you want to, you can never come away looking at the people who read the Talmud the same way. And it's a shame. It's a shame that the children are born into this cult, and that's what it is, really. But of course, that's why the Jew rises to the top. Okay, and let's explain it from that angle, because they can do all these criminal acts against us in a society that is losing its moral compass. That they rise to the top because that's the life they live, and of course that's why they push the porno, movies in Hollywood. They control Congress. They control the Federal Reserve. They control so much. And so much filth is pumped out at our child's brains. Heck, let's just look at the simple Star Wars, the Jedi Knights, right? Jedi is an anglicization of the name Yehuda. Of course, you take Yah and you make it into a J. It's been anglicized, and that's Yehuda. Yoda would be the Yada, to know, the gnosis. And of course, Anakin Skywalker, who becomes death, would play the Christ-like character. Of course, he's always inverted as the evil one. But you see this play out, that their religion is always in these movies, and they get to us that way.
It doesn't end. It doesn't end. There's a reason I don't own a television. It's not even a matter of turning it off. I'm glad I don't have kids, because I wouldn't want to have to explain to them why they're the freaks on the street. They can't listen to the television.
Well,
it's a weapon. It wasn't. We didn't think like we need to come up with something so we can entertain these sheep that we're fleecing. It was a weapon, and it's the most devastating weapon that's ever been used against everyone. Why do you think China put a television in everyone's home? You know what I'm saying?
And I want to read a set of scriptures for everybody to bring home my point.
Can you screen share on that end? Can you see a screen share button on your end?
No, I don't see a screen share button. We're going to read Matthew 24, 37, 38, and 39. And then I'm going to read Matthew 23, 15 about the proselytizing and the days of Noah. folks, what we have happening here in our world is the quickening of events. And what we have is most people are unable to process all this information. We're overloaded with information. It's not like that we don't have enough information. We're overloaded. And men and women cannot see what is coming because they just can't discern what's real and what isn't. So let's read this, Matthew 24:37. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. And listen, as they're bringing back, remember, they're trying to go back to Babylon. And personally, my personal belief system is that they want to go pre-flood, right? Because, of course, then you have the trickle down of Hermes, Trismegistus, and everything else. You see Mercury and everything, which is Hermes. I can see that they want to bring this one world collective hive mind back, because that's how their utopian dream world comes in. And that's what we're going to do. And then I'm going to read 23:15 on how they infiltrate and subvert through proselytizing, like we saw there with Maimonides. And of course, we read in the protocols, right? They're going to infiltrate the churches. They're going to become doctors, lawyers, men of authority. And we'll start right there at 14, Richie. Matthew 23:14. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees. So first off, men and women read this and they don't know what a scribe is. A scribe is one who pens the law. Man's law. Pharisees, that's your religious crowd. Hypocrites, for you compass sin, for you devour widows' houses, for pretense make long prayer. Therefore you shall receive the greater damnation. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you compass sin land to make one proselyte, and when he is made, you make him twofold more the child of hell than yourselves. Woe unto you, blind guides, which say, whoever shall swear by the temple, it is nothing, but whosoever shall swear by the gold of the temple, he is a debtor. And you can, Matthew 23 is a great chapter, by the way. But this is what happens, right? This is the infiltration and subversion of churches. And what we're left with today is 26,000 denominations of a biblically one way. And that gate's narrow, folks. And I mean to say that because it is written that it's narrow, and getting too far to one side of the path is exactly where the enemy wants you. It's in the extremes that they circle you in when you lock your mind down and you're not allowing truth to rule you. Yet, hey, there you go, Christine. I like that too. And they really are. I don't dislike anybody. But what I do have is years of knowledge of researching religion, of course, and I'll give everybody a background on how I come to where I am today. I started out reading sacred geometry books about 14 years ago. And I started reading those sacred geometry books. I was probably agnostic at that point. And anyway, I ended up in theosophy and all kind of other garbage. But what happened is, as I started getting further and further into these lies and reading different avenues, I started realizing that they sprang from one source, and that source is Judaism / Kabbalah. Just like in that picture that I sent you, Richie, from Albert Pike, where Albert Pike says, "Here, I'll read it. I'll read it from it. I'll pull it up real quick. See if I can find it. I'll read this.
I'm on it, I think.
And on page 744 of Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma, he says, all truly dogmatic religions have issued from the Kabbalah and returned to it. Everything scientific and grand in the religious dreams of the Illuminati, Jacob Boehme, Swedenborg, St. Martin, and others is borrowed from the Kabbalah. All the Masonic associations owe to it their secrets and symbols. and that's page 744. And what you have is this. You can find this over and over and over again. That the perversion and twisting of the truth into their desire happens every time. And what we do is we get back and we argue back and forth with each other. It's the Freemasons, it's the Jesuits, it's the Jews. They're all one and the same in my book. I don't differentiate between one or the other.
That's why I have no problem just calling them the Illuminati. That's what they prefer. They're the illuminated ones. It's all them. You know what I mean? It's, to me, it's the same thing as saying that there were planes, there were no planes on 9/11. It doesn't matter. 9/11 still happened. We didn't do it. Nobody in the Middle East did it. It was done right here at home. You know what I'm saying? Stick to the point. Basically.
Right. Well, they want us to argue about the details,
And
right?
they're great at it, dude. They're great at it. You know what I'm saying? Republican, Democrat, that doesn't even make any difference whatsoever at all. Sports teams, they're phenomenal at it. They're phenomenal at it.
I think one of the best videos I've seen in a long time was Aaron and Melissa Dyke's video that they did the other day on the swimming lanes. I don't know if you saw it, but I had just spent a little time speaking to somebody about the scapegoat ritual myself, and how Epstein was another scapegoat ritual, while also for the last 3 years, they've normalized pedophilia by putting it in the public's eyes and minds, and that everybody's doing it. And then, of course, at the end of the day, I think it was yesterday, they just said that the Epstein investigation is completely over with.
Well, the other thing, too, is everybody hated me back in 2016 when I finally put out a video saying, listen, Pizzagate isn't real. The entire thing is real, but this entire idea that people are going to get, taken to court and blah, 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 and people are going to pay, and Hillary and Podesta, none of that's going to happen. None of that did happen. But what it did do is it introduced their sick, twisted, pedophilic, ritualistic, sacrificial selves to everybody and normalized it. Now it's just no big deal, man. You know what I mean? Just no big deal, which is why I didn't spend very much time on Epstein at all. I don't care if he's dead or alive. Case is closed. It's a done deal. Well,
I made a comment in one of my studies that you would never hear anything about Epstein. He would get immunity some way, shape, or form, and that's what I left it as. And lo and behold, 4 or 5 weeks later, he got that immunity.
Oh, indeed. I'm going to contradict myself, but that's what I do. So there's that. He hangs himself. I've done time. I've done time in a lot of facilities. I know people that have done time in a lot of facilities. Dude, a guy as profile as him, he ain't hanging himself. It's not happening. It's not possible. It isn't possible.
I was trustee on the psych ward, okay? When I did my time, I was trustee on the psych ward, baby, and you ain't hanging yourself
hanging yourself in a Manhattan jail when you're worth billions of dollars and you have secrets about everybody.
You in there with a paper mache gown.
Right? Exactly. A paper mache gown, a concrete room, the lights on 24/7, and the bed's made of metal. There are no sheets.
Yeah.
So
that's it. And I told people that. It was one of the few instances I had where real life experience could say that he did not kill himself, and that's one of them. Yeah, and it doesn't matter if he's dead or not, Kev Johnston. He could be alive, dead. It doesn't matter. The information, what they wanted to complete with that agenda is done. What they just revealed to you again that absolutely nobody in their club ever pays the price. Justice is dead.
Indeed, without a doubt. I mean, it amazes me. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how deep into YouTube you were at the time, but when Donald Trump surfaced and Alex Jones started pushing him, and really big channels that had a lot of respect started pushing it, and I'm like, wait a minute, guys. Remember the time that voting isn't real? Suddenly, we live in a democracy, but here's Hillary Clinton, the closest thing that we literally have to the Wicked Witch of the West, but worse. And then here's a billionaire with incredibly bad hair who said some wacky conspiratorial things for the last 10 years, starting with 9/11. These are your two choices. It was ridiculous, and people still fell for it, man. It was unbelievable. And Alex Jones was pushing the entire thing. Come on.
Yeah.
Every red flag in the world. It's unbelievable.
Well, what we witnessed there was the first time that live data was used against the people.
Indeed. And again, the television shows it. That movie, that television show, House of Cards, which ironically, the guy playing the president got caught up in that Me Too thing or whatever. But they showed how they were using all that stuff.
Yeah,
social media is amazing because they can do something and watch exactly what we're going to say right there and then make adjustments. And they've been doing it for years. I don't know how many times we got called out for, you guys, you called out a false flag. Well, we're just looking at what they're putting out for information.
right.
And they're looking at what we're putting out for information, and they adjust. And
Right.
It's unbelievable, man.
And one of the things that we do when you start observing instead of just seeing is you can see these it's like the gematria, which I don't spend a whole lot of time on. But we could have earlier just on some of the numbers for that Noahide law deal, because remember septa is the Latin number 7. For whatever reason, it's our 9th month, but you have 7, 2, 5, which is 7. So you have that 7-7. But these things are crazy when you start seeing them. But we observe them, and of course they go back and refine their skills and how they pull these events off. And then of course it's also a mocking ritual for us, because the brain dead aren't going to wake up. They're not going to wake up to what Yuri Bezmenov says until the boot kicks them in the butt.
I totally, completely agree with you, and it's sad to say it. It really, really is. But when I travel, I meet up with a lot of people face to face, and a lot of people I meet up with, I don't talk about in videos because they don't want me to. It's probably pretty easy to figure out what it is I do. I think they have.
Yeah.
But the main thing I tell people, and I say it to them face to face, and it's a tough thing to do face to face, but everybody's getting ready. The bell already rang. We missed the boat, man. This whole thing is going over we're going over the falls in a barrel, whether we like it or not.
Well, most people still think that the system isn't running as it was built to be, but that's a total misconception. It's running exactly as it was intended to.
It has to be. It has to be. This was a Freemasonic experiment from day one.
Yeah. Well, this was the New Atlantis, right? When you had
Washington, you know what I mean?
Well, you had the expulsion, supposed expulsion of the Jesuits from Spain, which come over here and started of course, if we get into the Jesuits, then we'll know that Christopher Columbus were Marrano crypto Jews too. And that's why I don't differentiate between two, but they come to start New Atlantis over here. I mean, it's just crazy what we think this place to be and what it really is are two totally different things.
I agree. Let me ask you, this is just on a personal level, because we've never actually talked. We've chatted back and forth, but what you say in videos, do you do this to people face to face every time you meet them?
Well, I start out. I don't start out as deep as what I discuss in my. I
would hope not. Because they'd be like, "What is this you talking about, man? What do you mean?"
Everybody at
democracy.
If I do have my entire office at this point in time, at least starting to look into certain things. I brought in my. I've had 2 guys at work who the banks were trying to garnish their wages, and I wrote rebuttal letters and started going after the banks to prove that any money was lost and things of that nature. But when they saw that those things worked, they've now started asking questions, and I take it real easy. And I'll warn everybody out there, man. When you get the deer in the headlight look or the stone face from anybody, it's time to quit talking.
Right. Here's the deal, because I get it all the time. I get emails all the time from frustrated subscribers. They're like, "I'm telling everybody everything," and it's like, but how are you presenting it?
Yeah.
like they're chemtrailing us, and 9/11 was an inside job, and Sandy Hook. People, that you got to relax a little bit.
No.
If people, in my opinion, if people don't notice that they're literally spraying checkerboards in the sky every day, they're not going to hear too many other things. And if they don't know Jesus, they're not going to be able to understand any of this, because it's the exact center. I got accused a long time. Richie never talked about God. Well, I've always known there was a God. I didn't talk about it because there was no reason, until I really started going down the rabbit hole, and you discover that every video everyone's ever made about the conspiratorial genre, realm, whatever, it all comes down to good and evil. Period. All of it. You know,
and really, when you don't have a touch with the spirituality of this place and what it matters, and the only thing you care about is you, yourself, and I. And of course, I did a study on that a few weeks ago, the 5 I wills, and how Satanism is way different than what people believe it to be, and it's more about the love of self. But when you go to talking to somebody that can only think with inside how it affects them, and that's the thing that comes up most of the time. Well, how does this affect me? You know, well, you quit talking, because the only person in the world they're worried about, the only man or woman, I should watch my language, the only man or woman they're worried about is themselves. So they're no help. It's just wasted speech. And one of the things that I try to assist people with is that the truth isn't for everyone, and we need to quit acting like it is. And Yahusha said it perfectly: cast not your pearls before swine. Admonish them once or twice, and then after that, if they don't want to listen, when they're ready, they'll come back to the person that tried to speak some truth to them.
That's totally true, and I'm guilty of that all the time, because I've made videos. And for the longest time, and you guys watching right now know this, I wouldn't even look at the comment section, because there'd be 1,500 comments in 3 hours before YouTube decided to stop everything. There'd be 1,500 comments, and it'd be like, all pretty much positive, and then there'd be a couple of people like, this is ridiculous. And I would get mad at them because I couldn't reach them, and it pissed me off. And then I'm thinking to myself, dude, I'm surrounded by people. Like, I don't even know anybody in my personal life that's I would even consider awake. And I'm talking, smart people, masters, bachelors, blah, blah, blah. On paper, of this world, they're smart.
Right.
I mean, how could I guess about chemtrails 10 years ago? The deployment, what they would use, who would be behind it. And then 10 years later, they come out and, hey, look, here's the deployment. Here's what we're using. And here's who's running it. How could I possibly guess that from my backyard? You know what I mean? So you think they like, aha, I've got proof. They still can't hear it because they don't want to hear it.
No, they don't. And really what happens is this is implied consent, which happens. And that's right. A child of father, right? Knowledge without being able to apply it is useless. Knowledge.
Expand on what you were just going to say before you read that.
Well, what was I talking about? I got rambled off on what was we talking about? Chemtrails?
Maybe I started with that, but at any rate, whatever.
Yeah, it messed me up.
Digress. We're all good.
I digress. It happens.
See that he just digressed live. See, we got him. Now we got him.
Well, I've only been subscribed to you for about 5 years, since you were at 20,000 subscribers. Yeah. It's been a long time. It's been a long time. I remember you. I remember you back in the day saying there was no way I'd get to 100,000.
And then people like, he's buying subscribers. I'm like, well, first of all, I don't have a bank account, so I couldn't do that. And second of all, that would be the most ridiculous thing I could ever do. When I'm like, anyone that's got 100,000, they're definitely been gotten to. Anyone that's got 200,000, they're definitely in on the plan. And it was like YouTube was messing with me. You know what I mean? But they never gave me the plaque. The little plaques that you get at 100. Yeah. Never ever. I was always in trouble when that happened. So, whatever.
Well, and I don't expect my channel to be around forever. You're
not getting a plaque, dude. You already got hit. You mentioned Jews. You're done. They do not dig that. Do yourself a favor. Make sure you start a backup channel, because we don't want to lose you until they pull the plug on all of us.
And we're getting to that time, right? If if men and women aren't sharing this information with like-minded people, shame on you. And I'm going to give people a bit of advice. Quit looking for that YouTuber that thinks exactly like you. Take the good, leave the bad, share the knowledge.
I've been saying that for years, because if you do that, you'll never listen to anybody. And that is, I hope I'm not too loud on the mic. I keep getting real close to it.
You're good.
The television, the music, politics, school, your work environment, everything has been, if someone doesn't agree with everything, people throw up a wall instantly and they're going to miss out. Take what you can and leave the rest. And I found myself being guilty of that for a long time. I was, here, take my advice. I'm not using it. You know what I mean?
That's right. It's called polarization, right? And
right.
And that's what happens. That's like one of my favorite pastors of all time. He's sadly, and that's Pastor Lawson. Still love him. He's just sadly mistaken on some of
time. Big dude. I went to his church. When I pull in your driveway, you can't miss it. I pulled in his driveway. I stayed in Tennessee for 2 days. It was pouring out. I'm sitting in his driveway. His entire church is surrounded by cameras. I put a letter in his mailbox with one of my RFB stickers. I said, I'm staying in town. I just want to talk to you face to face. Nada.
Yeah.
Nothing at all.
Yeah. And
I've never called him straight out, but I mean, I used a lot of his material, but the last couple of years, it's like, wait a minute.
He got stuck on Trump and Israel, and it's really one of those things.
Trump did a number, dude. He did a number on people.
He did. And of course, if you don't understand how Palantir and all these other systems are running and operating at real time to gather all this data and know exactly what everybody's talking about and every talking point that needs to be hit, I don't think they get away with it the next election cycle. But what I hope, and I be quite honest, I'm a collapsitarian in the sense that I'm ready for the collapse. And the reason why I'm ready for the collapse is because if we could just continue to allow them to suck up our child's mind, just how crazy will this place be in, say, 10 years?
Well, that's what I put that out in. You probably heard this. I put it out in a video few years ago, and I was really pissed off that some channels that I followed that I came up under, these guys are talking about they're trying to open the pit of hell, they're trying to release demons. Some people hear that and they think, oh, that's terrible. I hear that and I'm like, men's hearts will fail from fear. Like, this is a real thing. This is a real thing that they're actively working on. And then these people would say, and we just had a baby. And I'm like, how can you understand what you just taught me, but you're bringing a child into this world? So you got to get it through the obstacle course of genetically modified food, fluoridated water, vaccines, indoctrination, pre-care. I don't even know what schools there are anymore. When I was a kid, there was first grade through 12. Now there's like pre. They want them right off the bat. Well, the children, I own the world.
Well, we took the financial hit and said, we're just going to, my wife and I, and said, hey, look, we're going to homeschool no matter what the cost is. They can't have our children, and they just can't. And it's tough. It's tough in today's world with inflation and taxation taking the wealth of the middle class. But struggle we will for the minds of our children, because everything is the whole curriculum at school. And I don't know about y'all, but we have the drag queen story hour, just 30 minutes up the road here.
Yep, I covered that a few times now. And
every public library you go to, there's a homosexual, transgender guy behind. It's like they hire them for a reason. I don't know why. They're actually doing the story classes and everything else. It's weird, man. It's crazy. And I live in a very small town, very, very small town. We don't even have a stop sign in this town. But you
know when to stop.
There is no stopping. You just keep
going. Wow. So,
I tell you, you'll know when you're in town. There's a little roundabout that they build, and I don't know if they build those everywhere where you are, but we got all these little roundabouts that that do have yield signs.
We call them rotaries. We got rotaries, and people that don't live around here don't know how to drive through them. I blow right through them, but they are putting up more of them in places that don't make any sense. It used to just be the end of a street. Now there's a roundabout, and it makes no sense. So it's kind of strange that you brought that up, because now I'm going to look into it a little more.
Yeah, they're going up like wildfire here. They're everywhere.
Don't say wildfire, man. They might shoot one of those directed energy weapons down your neck of the woods. And speaking of that, keep an eye on Colorado. I was just out there, and literally, as amazing as the mountains are, as many, the alpines, 7 out of 10 trees was dead, and I got it on video. That ain't good.
No, and the only time I am EMF sensitive.
Me too.
When I get to the city, or say New Orleans or Baton Rouge, and my wife thought I was crazy a year and a half ago when I told her they're putting up 5G in Baton Rouge, and every time I get there, my ears ring, and of course they just went live with it. I think 3 weeks ago. So all iPhone users and AT&T and Verizon in the city of Baton Rouge now have 5G.
They've been switching it on, but when it's all on, it's gonna be, all those videos that you may or may not have watched about those targeted individuals, the people that you watch the video and you're like, this dude's batshit crazy, man.
That's right.
But when something's attacking you that you can't see, because it happened to me, it happened to Nicholson 1968, it happened to a bunch of us, and we wouldn't say anything in a video, because why would you? These guys are messing with you and you can't see it. So what, you're going to tell them it's working? You know what I mean? And that's exactly when I started talking about the full armor of God every day, because it was the only thing that stopped it. I wasn't going to wrap myself in aluminum foil, even though ex-CERN employees do that. And apparently there's some relief, man. So I'm not casting stones. It's no joke. When 5G is up and running, we're going to be looking at the Bible come to life.
Well, and I've got a very good friend that I met on Twitter up in Iowa, who's an ex-Navy SEAL that's just talked too much. Real heavy on Twitter and social media and everything else. He's just talked too much, and he's a targeted individual, and he's even lost his job now, because that's what they do, right? They gang stalk you to lose your job. And
that's a fact, because I was approached by a special forces dude in Colorado, and I text back and forth with him. I mean, he's still active, but he said when he came home from the theater in Iraq and Afghanistan, he couldn't believe how much of the propaganda and psychological warfare that what they were using over here. Because when you're over there fighting a war for America, when you're spreading democracy, you don't get news. You don't get anything. You get what you're told. You go fight these people, kill them no matter what. He said he couldn't believe it when he came home, how bad PSYOPs were being used on the American people. This is one of our own soldiers. This was 5 months ago. And if you're listening, hit me up, brother.
Yeah, the Psychological Operations Command Center, I want to say it's Fort Bragg. Is that Fort Bragg? Anyway, Psychological Operations Command Center. And I mean, this is it's B Sibley 97. That's my Twitter account. Beats in the burr. When you go read this stuff, you can read it. It's in black and white. It's unclassified information that psychological. I think the mimetic. I uploaded that mimetic warfare and its uses by the Psychological Command Center, and how they use memes to infiltrate the minds. That's what they built Twitter for, was so they could alchemically transmutate us from a moral society to a decadent society, and it's worked
like a champ. PSYOPs are used in every country, but Americans they just can't seem to wrap their heads around it, that everything bad we've done to everybody else in the name of democracy, and everything bad we've done. I mean, we didn't just kill people in Iraq for something they had nothing to do with, and then every politician involved completely lied and everyone forgot about that. We littered the Middle East with depleted uranium. So everybody, the next generation's coming up, babies being born with their insides on the outside. That's horrific in a country that's already piss broke poor. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's funny. There are, yeah, definitely. So Anyway, I pray about it, man. I struggle. I pray about it. I'm not even joking. I really do. So. Yeah, the Men Who Stare at Goats, Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Yeah.
Hey, Roy, how you doing, brother?
Geek, the guy that worked for NASA. I've had him on a couple of times. I thought that's what he did. He did sensor something. I thought he did. He did remote sensing. I thought he was I thought he was training NASA guys to be men who stare at goats, and I was totally wrong. But he's still a smart dude, man.
Roy is one of my subscribers. I got a lot of good people from you last time.
Oh, you will this time too. So we got 1,500 people watching. That's pretty good. And
yeah,
like 12 thumbs up, but whatever.
12 thumbs.
No, we're not laughing at deformed babies. I love how people take things and just whatever.
No. All life is precious, man, because all life comes from the Father, man, and it's a sad state of affairs.
It's unbelievable how many people. I mean, dude, it's a woman's right. You know what else is a woman's right? You know, the biggest choice is choose to have sex responsibly or not at all. It's not impossible. You know what I mean? Sex is overrated anyways, brother.
Yeah, I'll agree with that too. It's one of those things, man. We can't call things what they really are. We live in this delusionary land. Murder's murder. It is. It's just that.
Is. And there's woe to those. You'd rather have a millstone. It's going to be bad. It's going to be bad. It's getting worse.
Well, you got anything else you want to discuss on the Noahide laws for us Gentiles, or did we cover that topic enough? At least give your folks something to talk about there and think about.
I think we gave them 75 minutes, and they can go over to your channel. You're going to be back up. Are you allowed?
I'm back up and running as of Monday. So I'm going to do, matter of fact, I'll give people a hint. I'm doing Amos 7:7 through 9 this weekend. We're going to drop the plumb line, and I'm going to break down the rest of this right here, in a more detailed way. Will I get to make my, what do I use? I use PowerPoint. I do PowerPoint presentations for anybody that doesn't know, but I can put the information up on the screen. And what happens when you hear it, you read it, and you see it? I'm hitting a bunch of functions at one time. That way, the information you can't. If you choose to deny it, it's your own choice.
Right, but the thing is, too, I don't want to listen to some guy talk about. It's incredibly interesting, and every time you listen to him, it goes by fast, and you learn something every time. Which is why I didn't even know you, and I started mirroring your videos. You know what I'm saying? I did ask first, though.
Yeah, you did, and. Just for anybody that wants to know, I don't sell the word or anything like that because I am a Bible study. I just feel like it's a free thing, and the knowledge was given to me freely, and so freely I shall give. And I don't expect my channel to last long. I really don't.
Make a backup channel and play the game. Don't give up just because they knock you out of the box. That's what they're trying to do. We have to fight. It's all we got. So we got to fight it till the cows come home. And unless they don't come home at all, that would suck.
Yeah, I do have a BitChute. I don't like the platform at all.
I don't like BitChute either. I think
I think it's horrible. I think the interaction with your subscribers is horrible. I think the chat format is horrible. It's really horrible. So I'll pray on it. And look, my channel will be up as long as Yahuwah wants it to be. To make no mistake about it, he
wants me to bother you to make sure you get a backup channel going. All right, guys. Richie from Boston, Brandon, the Big Sib. His links are in the description. Negative. None of that right there, TJ. At any rate, I appreciate your time. I'll have you back whenever you want. You got something to say? Hit me up and we'll get it done.
I'm blessed to be here, and thank you for inviting me, Richie.
Anytime, brother. Anytime. To everybody in the chat, there's a lot of you, so I'm not calling them all out. No Sheeple, Notorious DIP, Michael Vincent, Angela C, Kirk Marlowe, Eminem, Sapphire, 1961, Nez Lover, Melissa A Truther, Benny the Kid. We are out.
Oh, by the way,
Oh, I don't know if we're out. Go ahead. I don't think I hit the button.
hey, next time you come through New Orleans or anything, make sure you hit me up. I live.
I
right
haven't been down to New Orleans in a long time,
Yeah.
man. Hot and sticky.
You were supposed to come down the Atchafalaya Spillway.
Yeah, I remember. At any rate. All right, guys. Richie from Boston, Brandon, the Big Sib. We are out for real.